Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. I had a beautiful drive over here. Thank you so much for having me today. And we were blessed to have Brother Adam at our vacation Bible school all the way up in Pulaski, Tennessee. And he did a superb job squeezing a lot of information about Abigail within the limited time that we have given him. And man, I've never seen so many PowerPoint slides in my life, but I tell you what, he got through all of them. That was probably about 70 of them, but he did great. And so tonight, I'm going to attempt to do the same thing with Joseph. So if you have your Bibles with you, and go with me to chapter 37 of the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 37. And we will begin. The Lord chose Joseph to be observed from infancy. He is the son of Jacob and Rachel. In Genesis 30, we read about his birth and all the way up to his death at the end of the book of Genesis. And throughout that time, there are countless spiritual applications that we can make in all the aspects of his life. And today we're going to discuss his leadership. God chose him to be a leader because of the greatness of his character. And he was despised by his own family, rejected by his own family, and he emerged to lead and save every member of that family through God's providence. And we first read about him in his character when he is 17 years old, beginning at Genesis 37 in the first 11 verses. He has dreams about him leading his family, which didn't make his brothers too happy. In fact, they were envious of him and wanted to murder him or plot against him. Of course, we know that Jacob loved Joseph and showed favoritism toward him. And we're going to discuss all of this on how and why Jacob is a great leader in the Bible. First, number one, he was ready and willing to serve. Let's see, I'm going to push. There it is. Ready and willing to serve. Read with me beginning at verse 12 of Genesis 37. And his brethren went to feed their flock, a father's flock in Shechem. And Israel, Jacob, said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, and notice what he says, underline it, highlight it, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What are you looking for? What seekest thou? And he said, Well, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, Well, they are departed hence. For I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. Pretty significant here that he is willing to serve. He's able to serve. His father said, Go to Shechem, which is, by the way, 50 miles from where they live. He gets there. He notices they're not there. He's looking for them. A man asks, Who are you looking for? I'm looking for my brothers. He said, Oh, by the way, they're in Dothan. Well, this is what Joseph did not do. Well, I guess I'll just go back home and just tell my father they ain't there. No, instead he said, Well, I will go to them. Pretty significant because he went the extra 15 miles to go see his brothers, to check on him, to do his father's will. And that's two main reasons why Joseph would make a good leader. He's willing, he's obedient to his father, doing exactly what he said, willing to take that hazardous journey to check on his brothers. Also he loves his brothers. Why would he go an extra 15 miles just to go see and check on them? As I said before, it would be just as easy to go back home to his daddy and say, Hey, they're not there. And then try to get them in trouble or whatnot. But no, he wanted to check on them. And so he went that extra mile to check. And here's what's interesting. He knew that his brothers were envious of him. He knew how his brothers felt about him, and yet he still wanted to check on him. You know, it's easy to love those people who love you back. But how about showing that love to those who show animosity toward you, who are envious of you, who have expressed a disdain toward you? Friends, that reminds me of someone else, someone who we need to imitate, and that is Jesus, right? Absolutely. So he's willing to serve. The brothers wanted to kill him. We read the plot, 18 through 20. Reuben saves his life, but he loses a little bit of credibility. He said, instead of killing him, let's just put him into this pit. And that's exactly what they did, verses 21 and 22. And then we get to where, you know what, they're eating, and they said, there's no profit of him being in the pit. So they plot something else. Let's continue to read verse 23. And it came to pass, when Joseph was coming unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. They lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for, look at this, 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. They sold his own brother. Did you notice the price? 20 pieces of silver. Not quite as much as what Jesus was sold for, but likewise, Jesus was sold by his own quote-unquote brethren for 30 pieces of silver. Now, there's one more thing that we need to point out here in this account, in this chapter. If you go down to 29, read with me. Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit. And he rent his clothes, and he turned unto his brethren and said, this child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found, and know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it. He said, it's my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave into my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. Something very important that we need to use and understand here, especially when we come across those who want to put all their eggs in the feeling basket, if you will. Sometimes we talk to people about religious things and they ask us questions and we show them the truth, God's Word, and they say, well, I appreciate that you showing me those scriptures there about the essentiality of baptism. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you shown to me or proved to me through Scripture that you don't use mechanical instruments on Sunday during worship or any time when we assemble. We sing only. But then they turn around and say this, but I feel it in my heart. I feel it. I feel that I am a Christian tonight. I know what that book says, but I'm sorry. I feel it right here. Let me ask you this. Yes or no, people can obtain feelings based on false information. We read it right here. Jacob rent his clothes and says, I will go to my grave, what? Mourning. Let me ask you this. Was Joseph dead? He certainly did believe that, didn't he? And did it not his feelings of mourning develop based on that false information? Yes or no? Absolutely. Friends, the religious world out there are teaching and wanting this Christianity to be a feeling-based religion, a dramatic-based religion. Yet we know that it's our feelings that can deceive us, Jeremiah 17:9. Our hearts deceive us. But the truth is what makes us free. We need to notice that, and we need to understand that so we can tell our friends in the religious world. Now let's apply this. He's willing. God needs his children to serve. He needs them to be willing. You remember Joseph said to his father what? Here am I. Didn't want to hide. His father needed to check on his brothers. He knew how his brothers felt about him. He didn't run and hide. He didn't try to shirk the responsibility. Nope, he said, here am I. Too many Christians may hesitate. Too many Christians today may say, here am I, but send somebody else. Are we too dependent on other people? But really the question is, can he depend on you? God needs his children to serve. Also in congregations, God needs able men to serve as leaders in congregations, serve as elders or deacons. That's his design. That's the way he wants it. And many congregations of the Lord's church are very content with not having an eldership. Sometimes it's necessary. There are not any qualified men to serve in that capacity. But friends, we can't be content with that. We must appreciate what we have and appreciate that we have a sound, strong eldership and show them our appreciation by serving with them and helping them. But sometimes there are men out there that are just too afraid to serve. But remember what Paul told Timothy? He said, this is a true saying, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. 1 Timothy 3:1. He desires a good work, not a work that we should be afraid of. Not if we do according to what his word says. We have God on our side. There's no reason to fear in that capacity. But sometimes that's the case. Sometimes men desire to serve as an eldership on the other side of the way. And instead of just being afraid to serve, they want to serve because they want the title. Look at me, I'm elder so-and-so. And they want that kind of authority. We look at these brothers and we ask the question, how could God choose such evil men to be the heads of the tribes of his chosen nation? And really the fact is, at this time, he didn't. He didn't use them in that present condition, but after some hardships and after some problems, he's able to soften them up and then make better men out of them. We'll read that later on. But he's a good leader because he's willing and he's able. Number two, he's dependable. He became an overseer at Potiphar's house. In fact, the very last verse of chapter 37, we are told that the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. And then we read in the first 6 verses of chapter 39, if you'll go there, that he gains favor with Potiphar. Joseph quickly rises to the top, and it's because God is with him. And Potiphar knew that, verse 3. And because he knew God was with him, that's why he promoted him. Friends, a faithful child of God often becomes a blessing around others with whom they come in contact. We need to be those kind of people, to be blessings in people's lives. Sometimes it's us and we're walking sermons. Sometimes we're the only sermon that somebody in this world even sees or hears. And we could be a blessing upon them. It can lead to great things. We can be a blessing to other people. Unfortunately, after gaining all this favor, we read that he's going to suffer an unjust accusation. Verse 7, Potiphar's wife desires to be with Joseph. She wants him to lie with her. But look how he responds. Verse 8, but he refused. He said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There's none greater in the house thing for me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He's reasoning with her. He's telling her that I don't want to dishonor my master. He raised me up. He put me in trust. He's reminding her, by the way, you belong to somebody. You're somebody else's wife. it would have been so easy to fall into this temptation, wouldn't it? I mean, nobody would have known, right? And even if someone did, would anybody say anything? I don't know. Probably the wife could bribe somebody or threaten somebody to keep their mouths closed. But you know what? Who would know? The one that matters, right? The Father. Yes. He says, how can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He's not worried about what people think except for God, and that's all that matters. And so he flees, leaving his garment in her hand, verses 11 through 20. He's doing his business, and she catches him. There's no men around. He's trying to avoid her, and yet he tries to escape, and he does escape, but she leaves something in her hand, and that's his garment. And what's interesting to me is that this is the second time that a piece of his garment is the focal point of his troubles. First, he have his coat of many colors, and it's given to Jacob, and Jacob believes a lie. And now it's his undergarment here that's in the hand of Potiphar's wife, and now Potiphar's going to believe a lie too, and it leads him into trouble. You know, it might have unjustly got him in trouble here, but he did that which was right. He fled temptation. Verse 10, we're told that he did all he could to avoid her. That if he did all he could to not be alone with her, make sure that there are other people around if that were the case. Now, that's what we ought to be doing for sure. Remember, Paul told Timothy, flee also youthful lust, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. James says this, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Joseph fled temptation, and the devil fled the other way. Friends, we can overcome. Those that overcome will be blessed. It would have been so easy to fall into temptation, but he avoided it at all cost. So, again, Joseph's snake bitten. He's snake bitten. Things are going so well. He loves his father. He's with his family. Brothers become envious and want to kill him. Instead, they sell him into slavery. God's still with him. He arises and he's promoted, and he's the second in command to Potiphar. And yet, snake bitten again because of another piece of garment. You know, things are going so well, but something bad happened with not being his fault. So he's thrown into prison. Nevertheless, we read verses 21 through 25 or 23 that God is still with him. And he's promoted to be the head of that prison there. You know, we have to remember as God's children, we are going to suffer persecution. We should. And we also need to remember this, that persecution should be considered a badge of honor. So many times we, generally speaking, want to avoid the persecution. And I can't help but wonder if we would have put the same amount of effort to do what God simply wants us to do as we do of avoiding persecution, how much work we would get done. And God's on our side, right? Absolutely. He's never going to leave us. He's never going to forsake us. You know, I can't help but remember Paul and Silas, what they were doing in the Philippian jail. Thrown into jail for doing what? Preaching Jesus. That's what they ought to have been doing. Now, were they in that jail complaining, oh, I can't believe I'm in here. God, I've been doing the work that you told me to do, and now I'm in jail? Are you kidding me? Did they complain? Not one bit. Instead, what were they doing? Anybody remember? Singing. Singing praises to God, and every prisoner heard. But Joseph, he's not that way. He's there and he's doing his work. He's dependable. He's doing what he ought to. Later on, we read in the next chapter, in chapter 40, that two other men are cast into prison. God's providence up to work, doing its work, doing its job right now. The king's butler and baker both have dreams. Joseph interprets their dreams but gave God the credit, verse 8. The butler would be restored, but the baker will be hanged. And then 3 days later, read with me verse 20 of chapter 40. Look what happens. And it came to pass the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he had made a feast unto all the servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants, and he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But what did he do to the chief baker? He hung him, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Now look at verse 23. This is pretty significant. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. Interesting enough, Joseph asked him, if you will, remember me because I interpreted this dream. And notice what he done. He completely forgot. You know, sometimes that happens, right? It's easy to forget those that bless us. Easy to forget those. Easy to forget to thank those who are closest to us, who have been there with us through thick and thin. You know, I'm often guilty of this. I do a pretty good job, not the greatest job, but I do a pretty good job. In our bulletins, we have a sick list. And I do a good job trying to keep that updated. But you know what I forget to do? When my own family, members of my own family get sick, guess what I forget to put their names? Guess who I forget to ask prayers for? My own family. Sometimes that happens, doesn't it? Well, sure it does. But anyway, he forgot Joseph until Pharaoh dreamed 2 dreams, and that's the next chapter. Chapter 41, 9 through 13. Sometimes it's easy to forget those who bless us, but Pharaoh has these dreams, and forgive me for summarizing this for the sake of time. 7 withered cows devoured 7 fat cows. And his second dream had the similar, it was parallel. 7 withered ears of corn devoured 7 full ears of corn. Pharaoh summons Joseph. Butler said, oh yeah, I remember there's a guy in prison that interpreted my dream and it came to pass as he said. He remembers Joseph. He calls unto Joseph, please interpret this dream. It's bothered him. He's called on all the people that he knew, all the magicians, all the sorcerers that he knew that supposedly knew how to interpret dreams and predict the future and all this, but they couldn't do it. But Joseph could, not because of Joseph, because of who? Because of God. And so that's what he does. Joseph interprets his dream, and then what happens is that he promotes Joseph again to be head of Egypt. Now, I can't help to think how wonderful this is, because when you read these accounts, God is working providentially. He is working in the affairs of Joseph for the good of Joseph, of the good of the entire family of Israel. Then as time goes on, it goes on to the scheme of redemption, which is being prepared for you and me right now. It all started with a seed promise to Abraham through the events like these here, leading to the birth of Christ in the fullness of time, Galatians 4:4, to the death of Christ, to our baptism, till the time we get to heaven. All of these events are connected. How wonderful our God is, right? Absolutely. All right, so he's dependable. He's willing and able. He's dependable. Number 3, he's wise. He's wise. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams and suggests what needs to be done. Let's go to chapter 41. Read with me beginning at verse 25. Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God, giving credit to God, has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. They mean the same thing. The 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he shows unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of all those good years that come. Lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh. Let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. You notice who's showing Pharaoh what to do? This wise, great plan. Joseph's wise to follow what God has to say. 7 years of prosperity, then 7 years of famine. Store all the food that you can so that you will survive the 7 years of famine. And we'll read, continue to read beginning in verse 37, that Pharaoh gladly accepts that interpretation and the plan. The thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over the land of Egypt. Well, all in the dream had come to pass. And Joseph is wise, following God in preparation. We must be prepared, don't we? We would be wise if we would prepare, right? Be in preparation for what is to come. Friends, life is to come. Paul told Timothy, 2 Timothy 2:21, if a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and what? Prepared unto every good work. Purge yourself from those that are of dishonor, those vessels of dishonor. Separate yourselves. Work to eliminate weaknesses that could lead to temptation and sin. Prepare yourselves. If we make no effort at all, friends, we're not going to improve. Be prepared also to give an answer, 1 Peter 3:15, right? Absolutely. Be prepared to meet God. I love this, what Paul had said here, Philippians 3:13 and 14. Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do. Forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before, I press toward where? The mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. You know, sometimes it's good to look back from where you came. You can see the progress you made. It can be encouraging, but also this. Sometimes we look in the past and we dwell on it. And what does that do? It hinders our preparation. Preparing to meet God. Preparing to be ready to give an answer. We can't dwell on the past. Why? Because God doesn't. That's the good news. God does it. All sins have been forgiven, never to be remembered ever again. Hebrews 8:12. How wonderful is that? Joseph, great leader. Why? Because he's wise. We need to follow that example. We need to be wise in preparation as well. Another reason why he's a great leader is he was circumspect and discreet. The next 3 chapters, which we will not go over for the sake of time, Joseph has some encounters and dealings with his brothers, and I'll just summarize here, if you will forgive me. Because of the famine, Joseph's older brothers are forced to go to Egypt to buy grain. Joseph sees and recognizes them, but they didn't recognize Joseph because he's speaking as an Egyptian. Joseph not only continued to hide his identity, but he questions them about his and their younger brother Benjamin and their father. And then he accused them of being spies, and he jails them. And then he held Simeon in jail, and sent the others home, telling them not to come back without their younger brother. That brings the question, why does Joseph do this? Why does he not immediately show himself? Well, he's being circumspect. He's being discreet. What does that even mean, circumspect? We don't really use that word a lot. Maybe you do, but I certainly don't. It means to view carefully and cautiously, to look at every side or angle. Discreet means marked by, exercising or showing prudence and wise self-restraint in speech and behavior. You remember the last time Joseph was with his brothers? They were ready to kill him. He knew that. He remembered that. And he also remembered that they ended up selling him into slavery. And so when he sees and recognizes them again, he's not really sure what kind of men they are. Have they grown? Are they still the same way? If they plotted to kill him, would they perhaps try to murder his younger brother, Benjamin? Maybe. Or if he revealed himself, they might go home and kill Benjamin in spite. Don't know. Joseph, though, he's not gullible. Those who had been so filled with hatred, envy, and murder need to be carefully examined. Joseph wanted to find out what kind of men they were by observing them cautiously. Joseph wanted to protect Benjamin also, and if Benjamin was still alive, Joseph needed to be discreet, restrained, to find him and protect him from those murderers. So let's make application. God needs leaders who will be circumspect and discreet in dealing with the spiritual needs of brethren. What do I mean by that? We need to be an example to each other. Instead of rushing to conclusions, sometimes we do that as humans, don't we? We hear one side of the story, we automatically gain feelings of the whole story and made judgments. And sometimes they're just, sometimes they're unjust, but still it's not discreet, it's not circumspect, because we haven't seen every angle. And usually when we get the whole truth instead of the half-truth, something else comes about, doesn't it? Sometimes it does. So we have to be very careful. Don't rush to conclusions. Carefully view every side. Paul said this, see then that you walk how? Circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. Ephesians 5:15-17. We need to make sure that we have every piece of evidence before we go on and judge. And we're supposed to judge righteous judgment. How can we do that if we don't have all the parts of the story? We're supposed to believe all things, right? 1 Corinthians 13, that's one of the characteristics of love. Automatically assume the best first. Never assume the worst, but the best. But we got to be circumspect. Leaders need to protect their brethren by their discretion. Psalm 112:5, a good man shows favor and lends. He will guide his affairs with discretion. Proverbs 19:11, the discretion of man defers his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. Now we're getting to the good parts here. What makes Joseph a great leader? I think that was early. That's all right. But he's compassionate. He's compassionate. Joseph was a great man, a great leader, because he was compassionate and forgiving to those who were truly repentant. Read with me the first 5 verses of chapter 45. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, "Cause every man to go out from me, and there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I'm Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence." I wonder why. "And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you, please. Come." And they came near, and he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me hither." And here's the reason. "For God did send me before you to preserve life." He noticed and remembered this is God's providence. There's a reason for this. If you go on to verse 14, he sees his brother Benjamin. He fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all brethren. Notice that. Not just Benjamin, but all of them too, and wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. Man, we have a family reunion here. We have a great separation finally coming together. How many of us are sitting right here in this very building hoping for that to happen one day? Hopefully here on earth, maybe perhaps we're having family trouble. Perhaps we have taken too long to speak to somebody that we need to really ease that up and start forgiving, or at least having the willingness to forgive. Bring that together. It's very sad sometimes that forgiveness, that's a hard thing. Sometimes forgiveness is easy. I forgive my children if they perhaps, drop a glass and break it or spill some milk. I can clean it up. No big deal. You're forgiven. But there is sometimes those things that have happened or sinned against you that you may be holding on to because it's not so easy. Maybe the person's not penitent, doesn't think he needs forgiveness. Friends, perhaps we don't need to forgive or don't have to, quote, have to forgive unless they do repent and ask for it. But notice what I said, have to. We don't want to have the have to mind. What do I have to do? Instead, we want that willingness. We want that desire to forgive. We want that reconciliation with our family, or maybe perhaps with our own brethren. A lot of congregations have split within the last year. A lot of congregations showed their true colors. And many people have developed this animosity, and the church has really suffered. Friends, we need to have that willingness and desire to bring them back and just forget about it. Aren't we told that we must be willing to forgive if we want forgiveness from our Father? Yes or no? We want reconciliation with our family. We'll want reconciliation with brother, but more importantly, we want reconciliation with the Father. And none of that will happen unless this happens. Right? And Joseph, anybody sell you into slavery? Anybody plot to kill you? I don't really know that, so I need to be careful myself. As far as I know, nobody's plot to kill me. But Joseph overlooked this and saw his family and wept and kissed their neck, and their differences are gone. Now they're worried again. We'll close with this. Go to all the way to the last chapter in Genesis 50 here. Look with me, beginning of verse 17 until verse 21. We'll notice that his forgiveness is not fickle. So shall ye say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren and their sin, for they did unto thee evil. And now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of thy father. And Joseph wept when they spake unto him. His brethren also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we be thy servants. Notice they're nervous. Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good to bring to pass, as it is day, to save much people alive. Now therefore, fear ye not. I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. Wonderful, right? Joseph was willing. He's dependable. He was wise. He was circumspect, and friends, he was compassionate. Characteristics of a Christian: to lead the lost souls to Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for your time. Tonight we did study Joseph, and we can learn so much throughout his life and how his brothers hated him at first and ripped his coat of many colors, dipped it in blood, gave it to his daddy, and his daddy thought he was dead for a very, very long time. And throughout God's providence, through many events that happened in Joseph's life, God was with Joseph, protected Joseph, promoted Joseph, and made it to where his family can be reconciled once again. And remember what we said in Genesis 50, the brothers were afraid of Joseph now. He's a man of power. And so they were afraid because of what they had done. And Joseph had already told him that he had forgiven them. And Joseph said, "Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive." Is that not parallel to the New Testament today? That before Christ, that we are enemies of God, that we are not friends of God, that we are envious, murderous, and in sin? Absolutely. But again, throughout our lives, we are being taken care of providentially. Throughout the history of time, God has provided the means for you and I to be saved and to be reconciled unto Him. He has He's made it possible for all men everywhere to be saved. Jesus was born in the fullness of time, Galatians 4:4. And He came from heaven. He died for you and me. He does not want us to go to the place of destruction, but He wants us to be saved. And so He provided His way of salvation. Our faith comes by hearing His word, meaning that we can read this book and we can learn exactly what it is to know what it is to please God and choose to do them. He requires all men everywhere to repent, Acts 17:30. And yes, we must confess Jesus before others, and if we do that, Jesus will confess us before the Father, which is in heaven. Friends, we must be immersed in water in order to obtain salvation. Acts 2:38, Peter said it's for the remission of sins. Paul said it's how we call on the name of the Lord, Acts 22:16. He also said it is what now, or Peter said it's what now saves us, 1 Peter 3:21. It's how we put on Christ, Galatians 3:27. And friends, that's where all the spiritual blessings are. God's love, our salvation, God's grace, God's mercy. It's in Christ, so we must know how to get into Christ. And friends, there's only one way. The Scriptures tell us. It's baptism. So yes, it is essential for salvation. But not only that, friends, we can't just stop there. That's only the beginning. So many are guilty of saying, you know what, I've been baptized, that's all I need to do. Shut the book and don't show up ever again. I've punched my ticket to heaven, if you will. And yet they fall right back into the world. Friends, we must grow. We must remain faithful. We must learn to love Christ and to serve Him. Christ wants us to send His message out to this world. We are to be lights in this world. So perhaps you have not been baptized yet. You could become a child of God and get into Christ tonight. That's the good news. Your sins will be washed away. They will never be remembered again. Hebrews 8:12. That's amazing, isn't it? Talk about a heavy burden taken off our shoulders. But perhaps you have been baptized. And maybe envy or animosity or something that's just not Christ-like or that has brought us back into the world. Maybe it's something that happened in our lives that's just pulled us back. God says if we confess our sin, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sin, and the blood of Christ continues to cleanse us, 1 John 1:7. The news cannot get any greater than that. Tonight can be the night where you can finally punch your ticket into heaven and learn what to do in order to be saved. You can go to sleep tonight knowing if anything were to happen, Christ come back, perhaps, heaven forbid, a tragedy might strike. We will be in heaven. We'll have that blessed assurance. Don't you want that? I know I do. If there's a spiritual need tonight, we hope that you'll make that right choice before it's everlasting too late. Brother's got a song of encouragement. So if you do wish that, come to this front pew as we stand and sing. Won't you come?